It's always important to consider books that have been written on aging, and I have a really good one today. The book's called The Privilege of Aging, Savoring the Fullness of Life, and the author is Kamla Kapur. She is an American, but she's from India. And what is important about this book, not only is the fact that it's I believe, an autobiographical look at her life as she's aging, but also we get a perspective from India as well. And that's a very old country, thousands of years older than the United States. And I'm interested in asking her perspective. So, Kamla, welcome to Destiny. Great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me, Cliff.
Would you say this is an autobiography, an internal look at your life and how you've kind of taken it in and kind of this is your walk. This is your path.
Yes. And I would say it is definitely partially an autobiography. And it also contains essays on, various topics that concern me as an aging individual. So there is that as well. And some of the essays illumine some autobiographical details, like I'll tell a story and then I may talk about it. Mm-hmm. So and I would call it a memoir, an autobiography as well as essays.
I really like it. I want to mention also that you're a former literature professor, college professor, and you were raised in India, studied in the United States, but you have a home in India as well as you're coming from San Diego, California today, right?
Yes, I'm there, and we have a home in the Himalayas, a very remote place, and a home in the city as well, so that when my husband and I go for like 6 months out of a year to spend in India, we have, we have comfortable homes, so that as you age, you don't want to travel. You want to go from a comfortable house to
another comfortable house. Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about the feeling and the way people treat aging in India. I mean, India seems to be young and old. It's an ancient country, but there's problems politically there. I have a lot of friends in India, and it's like the countryside and then the city. It's like so different from each side. But what would you say in general, if you can generalize the thinking, what is the feeling on aging? Is it respected? Is it treated with honor? Talk a bit about that.
Well, the typical sort of scenario is that children live with their parents. They have joint families. And so when, one parent dies, then the other one's taken care of by the family. And are looked after well. They are elders. But, there's all sorts of people in the world, in India included, so that, but we don't have a tradition of nursing homes or, warehouses for old people. So they, sometimes the elder lives with the children who don't treat her or him well, or don't, visit like maybe for 5 minutes a day, and don't really take the elders into their life as they live them in order to save them from isolation. Yeah. But it really depends on different people. In America, for example, my husband's brother has Alzheimer's, and he is really on top of it because, he cares. So the bottom line here is you love your elders and you take care of them.
Mhm.
And if you have no idea that you're going to be an elder one day, then you're going to not think about the elder in terms of empathy or
Yeah.
compassion, So
So why is there such a problem in the United States, Kamla? I mean, we don't appreciate aging as like the other cultures. And because of that, you just made a big statement. We have these nursing homes that we shovel our parents and our elders into because we don't want to deal with it. But that's such a problem.
yes, it is a problem, but we also have to acknowledge that sometimes it can be very difficult to caretake someone who needs a lot of care.
That's true. Yeah.
And we have to have sympathy for the caretakers. Sometimes they caretake for um, 3 or 4 years, and then, they are themselves aging. I mean, I was aging when my parents were aging. And so that becomes a difficult equation to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as this culture is concerned, the reason why it is a problem in the US, especially, is because we have such a culture of youth. We worship youth, we adore them, we think they have it all, and that the elders are irrelevant and should be swept under the carpet when it should be the other way around. Elders are the repositories of stories, and they are the repositories of wisdom that they have gleaned over a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So not all elders are wise, but most elders, I would say, are wise because, if you are at all a conscious human being, you learn from the suffering and the travails of your life. And those who don't learn, whether they're young or old, are not going to have a very fulfilling life. Because in order to have a fulfilling life, you have to live a conscious life. Mm-hmm. Where you think about your own aging, you think about your own death. And death is another big subject that nobody wants to go into here. They're frightened of it.
Yes.
And they, so they shove that under the carpet as well. It's like selective thinking and a selective projection.
Is that because we're such an adolescent culture, Kamla? Is that because we just don't have enough time behind under our belts? Our ancestors just didn't instill this aging into our consciousness.
I think it's both. And I think that it's really the individual's responsibility, whether you're 20 years old or 80 years old, and you can start learning at any point that to live more deeply, you have to live with awareness. And what does that mean to live with awareness? That you not only think about how you not only behave and act, but you think about how you behave and how you act. Because if the goal of life is self-discovery, it's very important to embark on it at any level of your journey. And I talk about that in The Privilege of Aging and how to go about stepping into this journey, because it is the most significant journey of our lives. It's the journey of our lives. And how do you want to end it? How do you want to begin it? How do you want to end it? How do you want to live it? You want to live it. If you are at all interested in self-discovery and self-examination, to begin from there, be nice to the people in your life. Mm-hmm. Be good to them, and realize that you don't have to wait till you're on your deathbed to realize that love is a very, very important element of our being,
Hmm.
and it means loving everybody in your life, loving nature, loving justice and tolerance, and loving the divine, loving nature. So if you have all those things, then it happens almost naturally that you begin on a journey of learning.
Yes. What is the privilege of aging? Talk about that, because that's a fascinating title. Is it the privilege because you are now an older person and you can look back and go, well, I made some mistakes. I didn't treat this person well. So now I can have this insight to be a better person. But that's my words. Give me your definition.
Well, the privilege of aging, somebody could read that title and say, well, what is the privilege? Our bodies weaken and our knees weaken and our brain weakens, and like some people say, old age sucks, And so what is the privilege? The privilege can only be found if you focus on it. See, everything is focus. What you focus on becomes real, because there's really no reality out there except the one that you create for yourself with your mind, So I have enumerated all the privileges of aging in the preface, and there are many, and they're countless. And, what I love about aging very much and consider a privilege is that my life is better now than it's ever been, because I have learned from my suffering. I have learned from heartbreak. And I talk about all of this. I talk about how I'm a better wife and a better friend, because I have learned compassion both for myself and for others in my life, and others close to you in your life, and others in your ambit, be they colleagues, be they friends, be even their acquaintances. Be nice. I mean, don't give your finger to people on the road, and don't curse and swear. You let somebody through one day, somebody let you through another day. So, what goes around comes around. And the sooner you learn that, the better relationships you'll have and the better experience of life you will have. So the privileges are innumerous. They can't be. I mean, I go slow, and that's changed my entire experience of life. I rest a lot, and that has given me new life, a new way of being. And I have time to go slow in. I think I wouldn't want to be a day younger than I am today.
Really?
Yes, I wouldn't. I mean, I really wouldn't, because I know that when I was younger, I had more energy, of course, and I have less energy now, and I had more stamina than I do now. But the compensations that I get for lack of them are enormous. Enormous. I'm happier than I've ever been before.
I'm curious to know the importance of exercise and physical activity as we age. What is I mean, I follow an Eastern philosophy. I've been meditating since I was 30, and I do yoga, but I'm the exception. I don't think my family doesn't consider that something to do, but what is your feeling on physical activity?
I think it is extremely important as you age. I know from my own experience that unless I do yoga and stretch almost on a daily basis, my body is crumpled. So if you have people who don't support you with your yoga, I would say screw them and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
It is very important. It's hugely important to go for a walk. It oxygenates your brain
Mm.
and it makes you think better. I mean, I'm 76. I'm still writing. I'm working on 3 books concurrently. You know, when I get bored of one, I go to another. And so I've written a lot in my life, and I would attribute quite a bit of that to good living, good good eating, good exercising, good positive mindset, which is very important.
Mm.
And you have to change your mindset. If you can't change the world, you have to change your mindset and accept those things that you haven't accepted before, those things that you cannot change. Once you accept them, you're free of them.
Mm. Talk about being mindful of your aging. What does that mean? Because you talk about that in your book.
Well, to be mindful of anything, and especially aging, means the word means to apply your mind to it.
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful, be present. For example, I find I'm beginning to lose many things and get a little flustered by the things I put away and can't find, you know? So what I do now is I've made it a habit. When I put my phone down somewhere, I make a mental note of it and say, okay, it's here. And I set it, give it a setting. Okay, it's on this brown sofa, you know. So I know when I'm looking for it again, I know to go back. I have a picture of it in my mind. And the same thing with keys, the same thing with taking my supplements and my medications. You know, you cannot live a mindful life if you're living for others instead of for yourself.
Mm.
And one of the things you have to do when you're aging is save time from useless activities and put that time in yourself. You know, you have to be center stage when you're aging. Not only aging, I think at any age, even if you're 20 or 30, it doesn't mean being selfish. It doesn't mean being, uncompassionate and not being kind to others. But what it does mean is that you realize that your journey through life is a solitary journey, and you yourself are responsible for your life and your happiness. And so that really sums up, I think, being mindful. And
Yeah,
you
I
can't
like
be
that.
mindful unless you give yourself time and the space to be mindful in. And we are too busy. We are so busy, we don't realize how much it's harming us.
Do you think that busyness is an excuse just to eat up time and that we're just wasting precious moments in doing busy work?
Well, busyness is also because you don't want to think about the human condition. You don't want to think about how precarious life is. You don't want to think about, hey, one day you're going to die. And if you fear that death, then you're going to live in fear for the rest of your life. So in this book, I show how I confront death and how I deal with it. And I can assure you that since I have fully accepted the fact of my own death, my life has become more joyous.
Talk about that for a minute. When you say I am confronting my own death, is that because maybe you had an illness and you felt weak and you thought, well, if this is the end, I accept it? Or is it more that I accept the fact that I am getting older and my time on earth will not be forever?
Well, you know, my awareness of death goes back to my childhood. I remember in the bazaars of Hyderabad, my parents were taking me, I think I was 3 years old, and it's a Muslim city, and there were these small little coffins for children, and I wanted one. I wanted it so badly that
God.
my parents wouldn't buy it for me. I lay down on the street and howled, you know. And then as I grew older, I became afraid of it. I would see people dying and so, oh my God, that's going to happen to me too. But my my book begins with, I don't want age, old, and death to happen to me. I want to go out and confront them in the pages of this book. That's what I do. I confront it. But about illness, I have been very ill this year. I've had 3 autoimmune diseases, and I did not know if I would come out of them alive. Because I was very sick, I had to face the fact that this might be the end. And I took that time, Cliff, to really experience my dying. I would lie down and experience it, when I die, the breath is going to leave me. I may suffer before I die, but I want to acquaint myself and I want to be ready for it. I don't want death to just creep up from behind and muzzle me and take me away. I want to be friends with death.
How do you consciously become aware of death when you're ill? And because this is interesting what you're saying. You're saying, I wanted to confront death. I had 3 autoimmune illnesses, which is serious.
Yeah.
And at some point you were like, I guess you're saying that you were like aware of your mortality.
Yes. Yes. But the other thing I could have done is I could have said like, oh, why me? Self-pity.
Pity,
mentality, I'm from all my friends. Why is this happening to me? And it's very self-destructive to think like that. It's very self-destructive to get into avenues of self-pity because then you drown in it. Then you're not looking for a solution. You're looking to indulge yourself in sentimentality and your lack of awareness of how life goes. I mean, nature, everything in nature dies and resurrects. Flowers in our gardens die, trees die, animals die, our relatives die, our friends die. Isn't that cause enough for you to turn some attention to your own death?
My guest today is author Kamla Kapur. She is a retired literary professor. She's written a new book on aging, what it's like to get older, what we should be looking for, and how we can age gracefully in America today. That's a big one, and I appreciate what you're saying. For me, though, I tend to focus on the Hindu and the ancient Chinese perspective of reincarnation. You don't talk too much about that in the book, but is that an important aspect in your process?
Well, one doesn't really know. And I would say that what happens after death, nobody's privy to that, But what you do have is you have ways of thinking that relieve you of anxiety.
Yes.
To think about reincarnation is one of those ways. I may not fulfill all my goals in this life, but maybe I'll come back and fulfill them. Now, that's a wonderful thought to die to,
Yeah.
Or you could say, oh, this is the end of me. I'm just going to be ash. I'm going to be dust. What are you doing when you're talking to yourself like that? You're just scaring yourself and you're not making yourself very happy.
Right.
And the thing is, death is a huge mystery. And like I talk about in the book, there's chapters on death, and that I got a lot of books on near-death experiences and read them all, like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and
Yes.
Socrates' death, and Moody talks about, near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. And if you're skeptical, which I have been all my life, then you don't want to believe this. You think it's mumbo jumbo. But at this age, actually, I've always been interested in that. Before that, I read about Socrates' death decades ago and loved him for it. Loved him for how he went to his death joyously, drinking the poison, loving everybody around him, and saying to his audience, one never knows. We do not know. Thinking that death is the end is one way of thinking you know everything when you know nothing, you see. So, and these are all my role models. I want to die like they did.
I think I'm bringing up reincarnation because it might ease certain people's minds. Like, okay, I'm suffering right now as I'm aging, and when I die, I'll be coming back. So maybe that's a way to ease the strain and the fatigue of chronic problems within aging.
Yes, it's one of the techniques that your mind can use to give yourself some peace, about all of this. And, even scientists are talking about space-time and saying that there may be somewhere where our lives are recorded and we can relive them the way dying people relive them before they die. Which is also a very comforting thought, because one of your anxieties is my life is ending. And that, in the face of the mystery of life, you have to have faith in that which promotes our peace and our well-being. So, I gave a talk recently, and one of the elders said to me, "How do you know that we live after we die?" And I said, "I don't know anything, but it makes me happy to believe it." So
Exactly.
I said, if you want to believe you're going to die and be dust, you're welcome to think like that. But does that help you?
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute, and you bring this up in your book about cognitive decline, and you have strategies for it. I think one of my big fears as I get older is not having my mind focused and working properly. And I take all kinds of supplements and tinctures to keep my cognition sharp as possible. But what is a strategy that you would suggest that someone who is having declining cognition can approach?
I would say that you're doing the right thing, taking your supplements. I would add walking to that, because walking is great for our brain. And all physicians and scientists say that. The way I deal with it is that I went through a couple of months of deep anxiety about it. Am I going to get dementia? Am I going to go into a nursing home? And it was such a horrible feeling that I had to find a solution that made me very happy. And the solution was, well, if it's in the cards, I'm going to do everything I can to keep that from happening to me. But if it's in the cards, so be it. I mean, so many people get dementia. Why should I be an exception? I'm going to do everything. I write. I keep my mind sharp. I read. I think all these I exercise. I think all these things are very important to keep your brain sharp. But I also accept the fact that if this lies in my future and there's really no cure for it, what can I do? I have to accept it as a possibility. And as soon as I accept it as a possibility, it ceases to frighten me. You have to embrace your future, whatever it might be. Just like you have to embrace your present and your past, whatever it might be.
Right.
you know. But I think you're doing the right thing. Add walking to that, add puzzles to that. I play backgammon. I read a lot. And when the book is too difficult for me to read, I have strategies for reading. I just read one chapter at a time or even one paragraph at a time.
Yeah.
And sometimes go over it again, reread it so that it sinks in, because the mind gets flighty at this age, and so you have to find ways to rejuvenate it, to stimulate it, I would say.
Yeah, stimulation is a key, is what they say.
Mm-hmm.
You write in your book, slowing down the pace is important. What does that mean when you say slowing down the pace?
I didn't know what it means till this illness hit me earlier part of this year. And I had to go slow. I walked slowly. I dressed myself very slowly. And I think that's the huge reward of my illness, that I learned to go slowly. And it has changed my life. I go, and I think that you could, even if you don't have an illness, you can do it in small ways. You can tell yourself, I'm going to go into the garden, I'm going to go into this park, and I'm just going to spend time slowly moving from plant to plant and looking at it, and experiment. Well, it's Sunday today. Let me slow down instead of, having to get out my Ferrari and drive around everywhere and show off, take your Sundays totally off and do all those things that you need to do. Like, make Sundays a day that you go slowly.
I love that.
It is the Sabbath after all, and this, you have to accept that. You have to accept that our bodies are overworked, they are overhurried, and that is causing a lot of illness. I know that it caused mine.
So when you say overworking, and this you talked about immunity problems, were you pushing yourself too hard and you just tripped something and all of a sudden you became very ill?
Yes. I pushed myself very hard in two directions. One of them was, I like I mentioned, I write on several books at the same time. I didn't pay attention to my energy and I would overwrite. And not realize, you have to pay attention to how your body is feeling. Your body is your guide at this age, and your body is a guide at any age, because our body speaks to us all the time. It says, I want to rest today. It says, I don't want to work on this today. So and I don't even want to work on this tomorrow. So, I've become a bit of a procrastinator. And I was a type A personality, jump on everything, be proactive, That didn't serve me. That didn't work for me. That only made me tired and unproductive. So a very large part of existence is resting. Not only at the prescribed time, which is at night, I had to take 2 naps during the day, and I loved it because I would go to a nap when I felt tired, and I would wake up refreshed. And resting, I mean, in fact, I can't speak enough of resting, that is the solution. I used to get depressed, and I noticed that I would get depressed when I was tired. So I switched those words around. I would say, I'm not depressed. I'm just tired. I need to rest.
Talk a minute real quickly about a lot of issues that people have. People are worried about money.
Yes.
I don't have enough money. I can't retire because I don't have enough savings, or I have too many bills. I have to keep working. I have to keep working. And this is, and I don't know about India. You can maybe speak to India, how people react to aging there and they're worried about finances. But in America, if you don't have money, you're in serious trouble.
Well, I empathize. I deeply empathize with people who feel they are tired of working and don't have enough savings to stop working. And my only advice to them would be take stock of what you have in the bank and simplify your life
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't need so much,
Right.
The more we need, the more money we need, you know? And so that is one of the things. And I think that this is all over the world, elders without enough funds. And I really believe that the government should step in and help them somehow, you know. Um, um, this is in India, this is in Japan, this economic, deprivation is all over the globe. And I really can't speak to it because fortunately, I've saved all my life. I haven't been extravagant with my salary. I haven't spent it on things I didn't need. It's foolish if you don't have the funds to go out and buy a new car. You have to take care of yourself
Right.
financially, emotionally, intellectually, everywhere. You are the only one that can do it.
Talk
Nobody's.
about, but say you have enough, but you're still just driven to keep working, keep working. Why is that an issue?
It's a huge issue. I'll tell you what. The reason why that's an issue is because people worry, what will I do when I stop working? I know somebody in the post office.
Yes.
I know somebody in the post office here. She retired and then came back to the post office. And my husband asked her, I thought you retired. She said, I didn't know what to do with myself, And I personally know at least 3 people who retired and died.
Because they
Soon
had
after,
nothing to do?
they had nothing to do. They felt their life was useless. They were irrelevant. They hadn't developed strategies to live their lives when there's nothing to do, like sitting out in the garden, just taking time out and drinking a cup of tea, going out to meet friends, going out to a park where you can interact with people or sit and watch them, develop a hobby, I would be very interested if people started, one of the things they can do is just start writing about their lives and then do an autobiography for your children, your grandchildren. They would really appreciate it. And don't think about grammar and being a great writer. Just write from the heart. Just write from the heart. You can pick up needlepoint, which is also what I do. I pick up music, which is also what I do. Even if you're not very good at it, just do some notes, just sing some notes, There's a lot that can be done once you are retired. My life only began after I retired from my teaching position.
Mm-hmm.
Then I didn't have external pressures and I could slow down and I could live my life my way, the way I wanted to. Listen.
You have an interesting chapter, which is, it's basically do nothing.
Yeah.
And this is a very important statement because it's hard for us in the West to do nothing. Give us some examples of do nothing and how it's how you approach it.
People don't realize that doing nothing is a very active process. You know, you're not being lazy. You're not wasting time when you do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You are actively, this is how I began. I said to myself, I timed myself for 10 minutes and I said, I'm going to just sit here or lie down and do nothing. It started with 10 minutes and it expanded to more and more. Meditation is the greatest way to do nothing. You know, what I didn't talk about doing after you retire is that it's really time to begin your spiritual life. No matter what religion you come from, what tradition you come from, start reading spiritual books and open your mind. Open your mind to the greater possibilities of existence. Work does not define life. You define your life, and what you do with your life defines your life.
So in some ways, you're saying that as we age, we're becoming, having more experience in the work we do, but maybe perhaps when you're on your own after working for a company and you're officially retired, it's time to be more introspective, perhaps.
Yes. Introspective, and I mentioned writing. And when you're writing about your life, new things come up. Things come up that you hadn't processed earlier. It's a really great way to be mindful of the life that you've lived and the life that you're living now. And do not denigrate doing nothing. Doing nothing is one of the greatest guidance that our elders have given us. Because unless you learn to do nothing, your life, and you keep yourself too busy again, frantically doing this, going here, traveling there, you're not really taking time out for yourself. You're doing. And it's tiring you.
Give an example, though, of doing nothing.
Okay. Like I'd mentioned the 10 minutes that I said to myself that I'm just going to lie here and shut my eyes and not think about there's this to do, there's that to do, and just till my timer goes off in 10 minutes, I'm just going to lie here and be with myself.
Okay.
And people don't want to do that because all sorts of thoughts come into their minds. It's a huge practice. And you think, oh my God, am I dying now because I'm doing nothing? If I'm doing nothing, does it mean I'm useless? You have to change your mind about doing nothing. Doing nothing is a very proactive activity.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And doing nothing doesn't mean you lie in bed all the time. Go sit out in the garden. Go sit in the sun. It is good for your bones. It's good for your health. You get vitamin D. Just walk into town, walk a block a day. I know people who, a neighbor of mine who walks 5 miles every day because he didn't know what to do with himself after he retired. And he loves it now. He's in better shape. He can finally pay attention to his body. He can finally pay attention to his diet. And, you don't stop doing anything. You just start doing other things that are much more beneficial for you.
So you begin to look inward, is what you're suggesting.
Say that again?
You're suggesting that we're looking inward.
Yes, we are looking inward, but we're also outward, preparing a nice meal for yourself. When I was working very hard, I thought that was a waste of time. Why don't I do a TV dinner? Right?
Yeah.
So, knowing that you're preparing a dinner for yourself, for the body, for the health of your body, is a wonderful way of Doing nothing is doing something that engages your attention completely.
Mm-hmm. You write in your book on that same theme, you say, side by side with activity, as I age, I have become better at wasting time, not hurrying, going slowly, doing nothing, resting as frequently as I need.
Absolutely. And I would say that all over again. And even though I wrote this book when I was 71, 72, and I'm 76 now, and it's more true of me now than it was before. And it's going to be considerably more relevant to me as I grow older. I stand by what I said.
We're going to take a short break to allow our sponsors to identify themselves, and I will return shortly with our guest today, author Kamla Kapur, discussing her just released new book called The Privilege of Aging, Savoring the Fullness of Life. I think it's an important aspect is you're not worrying about getting up at 8:00 to get to the office.
Yeah.
You're looking more at what is important for you.
You know, you live from the inside out, not from the outside in. Living from the outside in means you're thinking about other people, you're comparing yourself to other people. So and so is so productive, and I want to be slow. Living from the inside out means, touching base with yourself and saying, what do I want to do now? Maybe I want to lie down and watch some TV. That's fine too. Maybe I want to read one chapter from a book and think about that chapter all day, or read a poem, or spend more time with your grandchildren if you have them, join a club if you have access to one, just enjoy your life. I would say just enjoy it. Go out and eat a meal. Go for a walk on the beach. Go for a walk in nature. That is what is very productive. Nature will change you.
I agree.
How
do the family and friends react to our aging? I've noticed that my son makes comments about me slowing down and walking a little differently. Maybe I have a bad back that week or something. But when our family and friends are commenting on our aging, should we react positively or should we just kind of let it go?
I think we must react to that. We must see if we are walking differently because we have a backache. And I think that, again, I come back, physical therapy. I am curing myself of so many ailments from physical therapy. Do what you can to keep yourself fit.
Right.
And on the other hand, say, I am slowing down. I am walking more slowly, and I don't mind. It is part of where I'm at in my life, and I wish that you would accept that also. Your son says it to you because he's worried about you.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to reassure your son that you're doing everything you can to better yourself, and you need to do everything you can. See, you really do need to do everything you can, and take the initiative to do that, knowing, you have to first know and believe and trust that these things are important for me. Stretching out my back is important for me so I can walk better, so, and working on those parts of your body that are not working. I'm a big believer in physical therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So, Um, and I would say again, embrace the changes that you're undergoing. Embrace them. Unless you embrace them, you're going to be fretting about them in your head. Yes, I'm slowing down. My back hurts. This hurts. That hurts. Am I dying?
Am I dying? It's true. It's like, some people are so unhappy about aging, especially the poor women in the United States. You have to have your face lifted. You have to have this taken care of. You have to have Botox. It's almost criminal, the reaction to aging in the United States.
I think they should read my book, The Privilege of Aging.
I think you're right.
And I also think that our culture is very appearance oriented, very. And I bet you anything that people who've had 3 or 4 facelifts are not happier because of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you happy. What makes you happy is living within yourself and doing what you need to do for yourself as you age and accepting the aging process. Unless you accept your aging process, you'll never be able to accept that your life ends at one point. We have a shelf life.
Yeah.
And, every time I would come back to America from India, I would start feeling fat or in India, I didn't think about it, and I'm not fat. I'm really not fat. But compared to all the models that we see on TV, the sleek body, the blonde hair, it makes you question yourself. Unless you question the culture, you have to question the culture that imposes such shallow values on us. They're very shallow. I do everything I can to take care of my face and to bathe regularly and brush my teeth regularly, my bodily maintenance, but I'm not worried now about what my weight is, although I don't want to be overweight because it's not bad. It's not good for my health.
Right.
So, you have to take care of yourself from the inside, not only from the outside. Taking care of yourself from the outside is not going to give you any peace or happiness.
Talk a little bit about how the dynamics of a marriage changes as we age.
I love that topic because I talk about my relationship with my husband in the book.
Right.
And
his name is Payson.
Yes, and he doesn't like his name being in my books.
Uh-oh.
But as you can tell from the book, we had a contentious relationship when we were younger. We would have more fights. I demonstrate some of those fights in the book, and I demonstrate how we overcome them. And I can tell you without doubt that as we get older, we get closer together. We realize that we think about the other before we have a fight. We think about how it's going to impact our relationship. Fights make us very unhappy. Disagreements make us very unhappy. So both of us realize to let things go as soon as they arise and to let things go that don't serve you or relationship well. And you have to let go of things that are not working. For example, sexuality. My husband and I hold hands when we sleep. And that is more precious to me than any degree of sexuality I may have had. You realize also that that is not an important part of life. Love transcends sexuality. We are closer now. We cuddle more. We spend more time with each other. because we are very aware that our time is limited. There is an end to that. My friends have lost their spouses, and I know how much they suffer from it. And they suffer from a lot of guilt because they didn't treat their spouse right. So if you don't want to die with regret, I would say mend your relationship now. And the only way to mend it is by loving the other, by recognizing his or her good qualities. We don't recognize each other's good qualities because we are ungrateful. We're always looking for what isn't there instead of what is. And the relationships only improve if you have an open heart. Both partners have an open heart. It cannot improve if one partner is shut down emotionally and won't listen to the spouse. So
talk a minute, if you would, about the suicide of your former husband, Donald, because you mentioned this in the book. What a traumatic experience that you went through. That must have been, and you actually talk about leading up to his suicide. You asked him how he was doing. He seemed a little distant, but not, terribly emotionally disturbed or anything. Talk a bit about that.
Well, actually, I think that my mindfulness and my aware living was caused by his suicide, because I realized the ways in which I had been to blame in his suicide. I mean, I didn't pull the trigger that killed him. I treated him very well. I loved him. But a couple of months before he committed suicide, he withdrew so intensely that everything I did to bring him out of himself didn't work. He withdrew so deeply into himself that I found no way of approaching him.
Wow.
And in retrospect, I saw that I should have sent him to a psychiatrist. But I never saw a psychiatrist before that. I didn't think of therapy before then. And he'd been through a lot of therapy, So the gravity in our house was so intense before he killed himself.
It must have been, yeah.
That, and then when he finally did it, it was the most traumatic experience of my life.
I can't imagine.
And it taught me a lot. It changed my relationship to my current husband. I think about, if I say something, how it's going to impact him. So I don't say things at the wrong time. I wait for the right time to approach it in a sort of non-charged moment, And it made me aware how fleeting this life is.
What did you do?
It can turn on a dime.
What did you do to relieve your trauma? Because that can be a lifetime of trauma.
But some traumas you just have to go through. I have to do the suffering. There is no way around suffering, because suffering is the ultimate teacher. With suffering, you learn so much. You have to suffer. But what saved me, I would say, from falling into a hole myself, because my first thought when I saw him, what he'd done was to pick up his gun and use it on myself, And I didn't do it because I thought about my cats. I said, who's going to take care of our cats? So it's very important to be connected to something that you want to live for,
Mm.
and but what really saved me, Cliff, was turning to divinity, turning my attention to a spirituality that I had ignored most of my life.
Talk about that for a minute, would you?
The only thing that saw me through.
Kamla, talk about what that means and what that spirituality is, please.
Well, I can only talk about my experience of it. I come from the Sikh tradition, and the Sikh tradition is based on music. All the hymns in the Sikh holy book are sung, and there's a lot of music that's available. I would go to sleep with it. I would wake up and listen to it. I turn to God for help. You may not believe in God, but you must believe that there's something much greater than us. We didn't bring ourselves into life, and we don't know when we're going to die. We haven't engineered the events that have happened to us in our life. There's something higher than us. What is that? That is divinity. That is the greatest thing in life that is not out there, but in us. It's in us. And we have to connect to that innerness. And I think you can do it at any age. And all I would say for that is that just begin by taking out 5 minutes of doing nothing and turning your attention towards the vaster existence that lives you.
I like that. Yeah.
You don't live it. It lives you. And you want to solicit its help. So it was because of this that I didn't develop PTSD, although it stayed with me for many years. And I also realized that I wanted another partner. I accepted my emotional need for another being. I'm a solitary individual. I don't have children. I don't have family in America. And this happened in America.
Oh.
This happened in America. So I had no family to turn to, although 2 of my friends really came through and moved into the house with me. I'll forever be grateful to them, to Providence, actually, for sending them to me. When you ask for help, help is sent. And, so I knew that I needed, because I'm a hermit and reclusive, I need to have somebody in the house I can relate to.
You have such a big personality. I can't believe you're saying I'm an introvert, Cliff. It's more like, I don't know, maybe that's what authors are all about. They write about their experiences.
Yes, I certainly did in The Privilege of Aging.
Yes.
Honestly, without any reservations, I've revealed things about myself that I would not talk to anybody about. I can only write about them.
Amazing. As we conclude, who is this book for? I mean, it seems like you've tried to stretch and make it for everybody who is questioning their age and wondering what to do next after they stop working. But who would you say this is for?
Well, the initial idea for me was I started writing it for myself because when I'm confronted with a problem like aging had become for me, I write about it. Because by writing, I explore the question and I accept things about myself and about my condition. And then I realized that this book could be of help to others who are confronting their aging. And I know that I've heard from many friends that it has helped them do that. So, but I speak about the pilgrimage to yourself, the journey that you must undertake at any stage in your life, which is the journey within. Who are you? What are you all about? Can you change things in your life? So that you can do at any age. My niece-in-law is 40 and she started reading my book and she said it relates to me. So I was very glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it's for anybody who picks up the book and reads it, who thinks it might teach them something, who think they might learn something from it, and to hear a good story, I don't believe in telling people what to do. I can't even tell myself what to do sometimes. I just believe in sharing my story with others,
Yeah. The book's called The Privilege of Aging, Savoring the Fullness of Life. And my guest today has been Kamla Kapur. Wonderful. I'm glad we had you on the program. How can people get a hold of you? What's your website?
It's Kamla K Kapur. That's KAMLA KAPUR.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And
you said you gave, when we first started, you said you gave talks. Are you on YouTube? Some of your lectures on
I'm
YouTube?
on YouTube as well.
Okay.
Yes, I am on YouTube as well.
Excellent.
And but I haven't made it a concerted effort to be on YouTube. So there's definitely some things on there.
I think you'd have fun if you were videotape talks or perhaps discuss different segments of your book, chapters or so.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And
Time consuming to do that, but it's it's a consideration.
yes, and I'm looking forward actually when when some of these projects are behind me to begin to do that.
Right. Writing books is a big deal. Kamla, thank you very much and much success on this book. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Cliff, for having me. I appreciate your questions.